Hello, my name is Debbie Kelly. I am a field specialist in horticulture with the University of Missouri Extension based in Jefferson County. I'd like to talk to you today about SARE, Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education, and what that all entails and how it can come in and help you with your farm. So what is SARE? What is Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education? It is actually an agency within USDA, just as there are many agencies that are out there. It's based out of Washington, D.C. It is a grant funding and educational agency within USDA. SARE is then broken down into 4 different regions, as you see on the screen: Western, North Central, Southern, and Northeast. Missouri is located in the North Central region, and there are 12 states in the North Central region. So what is sustainable agriculture? It is a 3-tiered or 3-legged stool that looks at the profit over the long term of a farm. It also looks at the stewardship, the environmental issues, and how they can be as safe as possible. And it also looks at the quality of life for the farms and for the individuals that are actually living on the farm or on the ranch themselves, as well as the communities in which they live. So SARE actually has a bunch of different grants that are available. They have the Farmer Rancher Grant, Graduate Student Grant, the Partnership Grant, Professional Development Grant, Research and Education Grant, and the Youth Educator Grant. The Farmer Rancher Grant is a call that is out for farmers to be able to get some funding to be able to do some things on the farm, and I'll talk about that in our next newsletter. The Graduate Student Grant is for those that are in graduate school. It's for their research project as a graduate student. It doesn't pay for room or board or tuition. The Partnership Grant is the one that I'm going to be talking about to you today. Professional Development Grant is for universities and nonprofits, as well as sometimes farmers as well, to be able to learn more about sustainable agriculture and be able to provide that as education to others within their own community. There's also the Research and Education Grant. And that is also for universities and nonprofit organizations to do some actual research, as well as to provide educational opportunities to the farmers to whom they serve. And then we also have the Youth Educator Grant, and anyone that provides any kind of education to the youth in their community is eligible to apply for the Youth Educator Grant. So let's go ahead and look at the Partnership Grant. The Partnership Grant is intended to foster cooperation between agriculture professionals, such as University Extension, NRCS, nonprofit organizations that work with farmers, and they then work with small groups of farmers, usually 3 or more, to help those farmers to do some on-farm research, on-farm demonstration, or to provide on-farm educational opportunities to others in the community that are purchasing your products, or to other farmers that might be in the area who would be interested in learning from some of the different items that you are actually doing with your own farm. Examples of a partnership grant, we have on-farm testing, and again, these are just examples that are listed up on the screen, looking at cropping systems, looking at integrated pest management. How can you work cooperatively together with other farmers in the area? Looking at new ways of processing, approaching the processing of value-added enterprises, looking at projects that can lead to new and more resilient types of agricultural systems. There's lots of different ideas and concepts that are out there, and in a later screen I'm going to show you where you can go to see what some of these different projects have been that have been funded in the past. So what are the guidelines when you're looking at this grant? They're looking at actual on-farm research, or they're looking at on-farm demonstration, again, to others in the community or other farmers. They're also looking at education projects. And again, that education project can be for other farmers, or it could also be to those that are in your own community who might be purchasing products from you. The grant is for actually 2 years, 24 months. Each grant, you can get up to $40,000. This fiscal year for 2021, which is the cycle that we're in right now, they have a total amount set aside in the North Central region, so you're only competing with those 12 states, for $560,000. And if everyone asks for the total amount of 40,000, they anticipate about 14 projects or applications will actually be funded. A guideline that is of utmost importance is that it has to be 3 or more farmers have to be working on this particular project. And each of those farmers must be independent and a separate operation from each other. So yes, you can have family members that are on the same partnership grant. However, they have to be different farms, independent from each of the other farms that are part of the project. Additional guidelines is that someone as an agricultural professional, which we then call as a PI or the principal investigator for that particular grant, is the one who's going to take the lead on the project. They're the ones that are going to submit it into the SARE, North Central SARE. They're the ones that are going to be managing the entire project. So who are those individuals that you as farmers could work with? It could be anybody within the university extension system. It could be anyone that would be on campus with the university. It could be someone with NRCS, field staff. If there are some agricultural consultants that are out there that you could work with. Anyone who works with a nonprofit agency that does education and research and work and education to farmers is also someone that could be considered an agricultural professional. That could be the PI, principal investigator of the grant. In last year, in 2019, there were 35 total proposals that were submitted from those 12 states, and 15 of them were actually funded. The application itself, and it's very limited, this is an online submission, so the ag professional that you would be working with would actually be the one to help you to put this application together, would create an online location at the northcentralsare.org website and actually fill out these different sections. So the different sections are a summary, and the summary is just an overview of what the project's going to be. Project objectives, what is it that you hope to learn or gain? What are the objectives of the work or the research or the education project that you plan on doing? What is its relevance to sustainability? How does it fit with that three-legged stool, with long-term profitability, with making sure that everything that you're doing is environmentally sound, and looking at how well it can sustain the farm, the family on the farm, as well as its community. Also looking at proposed activities, including your outreach plan. So what are the items, what are the things, what are the activities, the actions that you need to do in order to complete this project? And then you also must have an outreach plan. How are other farmers going to learn about your project, and how are you going to relate that to them? What is that going to look like? They also want to know what the role of the ag professional is, as well as the roles of all of the different farmers that are going to be an active participant with this particular project. They also want you to do your homework. Yeah, homework, I understand that. They want to know what is the previous research on this topic of whatever it is that you want to do for this particular grant. And there is a way for you to figure that out, and I'll show that here in a couple of slides. They also want to know what are the outcomes and the impact. What is it that the objectives, what are you hoping to achieve? What are the outcomes from those objectives? Do you anticipate reaching those objectives? They also want to know what is the impact? What is going to happen because of the outcomes, because of the objectives, because of what it is that you're doing with this particular project? They also want to know how much it's going to cost to do the project. And then they also want to have a written justification, a budget justification of how you came to the totals of what you did for each of those different activities or supplies or events that you're going to be doing with your particular project. So let's look at the budget, because that's always one of the bigger things that people are looking at. So what is allowable as part of that budget? And we're talking about commercial horticulture here, but these budgets and these terminologies are going to be inclusive of all kinds of agriculture. So think of it as the commercial horticulture when we're talking about these allowed budget items. You can have in the budget the cost of doing field sampling, crop analysis, educational surveys, if that applies to whatever the project is that you're going to be doing. Some of the materials and supplies that you might need for the project, if you're actually doing research and you're looking at specific ways of growing specific types of crops, or if you're going to be looking at, for example, different types of colored plastic versus organic types of plastic, it can pay for some of those different sorts of supplies as well. It will pay for portable fencing if necessary, to, for example, portable fencing that you may need to move around the farm to keep some of those different wildlife out of your fields. It can pay for partial or full cost of supplies, and a supply is considered something less than a total amount of $5,000. If it's over $5,000 for an item, then it's considered equipment. Any type of outreach expense, mailings, printed materials, those sorts of things are considered outreach. Any local or out-of-state travel that is necessary for this particular project, and you have to justify why you need to do those different sorts of travel. If you're doing some sort of a demonstration or education or some sort of an outreach where you're asking other farmers to come to your land or your farm to see the research that you've done, you can supply some refreshments, some drinks, and some things, especially if it's during the summer when it gets really hot. Or if it's an all-day workshop, for example, and you want to supply them with some sort of a meal in order for them to remain on the farm for that entire day, those could be allowed. It also helps to pay for the agricultural professional that you're working with for this particular project. And of course, all these amounts would be within reason as far as the total expense. Items that are considered not allowed, anything dealing with starting or expanding a present farm, or starting the farm itself. Any equipment that's costing more than $5,000 is also not allowed. Any capital expenses, so infrastructure that you might want to do, permanent fencing that you might want to put on the land, purchase of land, purchase of animals, although that doesn't fit in with commercial ag or commercial horticulture. You want to put up a greenhouse, construction of buildings, none of that is allowed as part of the project. Also cameras, computers, video equipment. On a rare case that might be eligible, but you really have to prove what that's for. Another unallowable budget item is going to be meals that do not provide the continuity of a meeting or an educational program. Testing of specific commercial products. I know there's new products that come on the market all the time and people are like, I wonder if that really works. That would be considered almost like an everyday farm expense. So that is not allowed either. So what is the timeline? So the call for the applications, we also call it referral for applications, or the RFA, has already come out. These applications are due October 22nd. And you can actually go to the North Central SARE website. The link is there on this particular page, and you can go to that and read more information about the partnership grants. If you apply for the grant, again, it's due by 4 p.m. Central Time on October 22nd. There is a grant review panel. It's made up of educators as well as farmers. The vast majority of the reviewers are going to be farmers who are out there in the field doing the kinds of work that you're doing. That review panel usually takes place in January. If you are awarded the grant, you will be notified in mid-February. And then the funds are available starting in April. April's not the best time to start some of the projects because you're already in the field, so you need to think of your timeline when you're putting your project together and when are those activities actually going to take place on the farm. This is the website that I wanted to draw your attention to, the projects.sare.org/search-projects. And this is a particular website where any grant that has been funded by SARE in the past is out on this particular site. You can do your own little bit of research to see if your concept, your idea has already been funded. If it's been funded, chances are you would not be funded. However, if it was funded, for example, in Utah, and you would like to do it here in Missouri, you can explain how Utah and Missouri are different, and therefore you might be able to be funded for that particular project in Missouri. Or if the project has been funded in the past, and the results are out there, how can you build upon the successes or the failures of that project with your own project? And that would also then be eligible to be funded. What's different about SARE is that it doesn't go through the state departments. It actually goes through the land grant and universities. And in Missouri, we have 2 land grants, the University of Missouri and Lincoln University. Dan Downey is the coordinator at the University of Missouri, and Dr. Toria Eaton is the coordinator at Lincoln University. Both of those individuals are happy to visit with you about the partnership grant, and I know they would be delighted to hear that you would be interested. Here is my contact information located in Hillsboro. You are more than welcome to contact me. When I was on campus, I was a SARE coordinator at the University of Missouri. Once I left my position there, I could no longer be the SARE coordinator, but I'm still very active with sustainable agriculture and the SARE project. I am more than happy to brainstorm ideas and concepts with you or answer any questions that I might be able to. So if you're going to apply for this grant, feel free to get a hold of either Dan, Toria, or myself, and we'll help you as best as we can, and hopefully we can get some projects funded in Missouri.